You are listening to Fantha tracks.
He's waiting.
Classic Star Wars and the collectibles they gave us. From vintage Star Wars to the modern era of the saga. This is Collecting Tracks. Here are your hosts, Richard Hutchinson and Chris Leddy.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Collecting Tracks. I'm Richard Hutchinson.
And I'm Chris Leddy.
And we're your hosts for episode 4, Star Wars Collecting Books. Well, Chris, what have you been up to since our last show?
Oh my goodness. Yes, so busy. We had Thanksgiving here in the States not that long ago, and then my oldest daughter's birthday, Cecilia, and not much little free time. I did get a chance to set up at another local toy comic and trading card show. I was able to make some sales, make some deals, and just dialing in the collection. And like many other pop culture fans and collectors consuming content like Andor, and I really love Tales of the Jedi. That was a great little mini series, and then Marvel stuff. Enjoying all that. And then just had a chance to pick up some items for the collection. I just got in the Hot Toys Bo-Katan and some Star Wars licensed sketch cards and some other Ahsoka Tano custom carded figures for that collection. I mean, that's kind of the gist of what's been going on with me. What's been going on with you? I know you've been dealing with some stuff.
Oh, have I not? But just focus back on a couple of things there, Chris. Just after recording our last Hot Toy show, we started talking about Padme. I don't know if I was delirious because I have been quite ill the last 3 weeks. I'm sure I saw a Hot Toys Padme somewhere on Facebook. Is that genuine or?
Yeah. Finally, after a couple years after being teased at, I think it was San Diego Comic-Con, Hot Toys finally is doing the Padme from Attack of the Clones. Amazing depiction from Hot Toys, the sculptors and all the creators involved with that figure just came out with a banger of a figure. And then to pair that with an Attack of the Clones Anakin as well, which the head sculpt on that figure is just next level. And
I just want to talk about Tales of the Jedi very briefly because I have to say I was underwhelmed by it. I just thought it was an instantly forgettable series. The first episode with Ahsoka being the little baby, I just thought that was fan service. There were some good moments, don't get us wrong. I like the Cypher-Diaz parts, and I thought some of that was quite interesting. But I just worry that Dave Filoni is in danger of jeopardising everything that he's built up, and he hasn't learned some things from George. George would not dare touch Yoda's backstory, but I have a feeling that Dave Filoni will do everything he could to milk Ahsoka's backstory to give the fans everything that they think they want without actually keeping anything back to keep that mystery and intrigue going.
You know, that's one thing where I really enjoyed the series because Ahsoka Tano is my favorite character, so anything that I get of hers, I take in. Not everything is exactly the way, I'd like it, but just getting more content is great. But you have a great point. It's like more and more story. Is that too much? I think we're seeing this balancing act of what's too much and what's, not enough between fan service and story development, whether it be Andor. You're seeing a lot of varying opinions on a lot of these projects. It's funny how some are, this is the best thing Star Wars has ever done, and some are like, I couldn't even get through 3 episodes. So I think this is going to continue to be a thing that Lucasfilm and Disney have to work through to find that formula that really works for everything. We've just got so many different things now for people to choose from. Do people just gravitate towards the things that they enjoy? And maybe not all content is for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm probably a bigger Tolkien fan than I'm Star Wars fan, and I love the Rings of Power. But equally, I see all of the problems with the Rings of Power. I see all of the deviations. I don't know how many times online I had to say that the studio didn't have permission to use anything from the Silmarillion or for the histories of Middle-earth. They only had those small appendices at the back of the Lord of the Rings, and therefore there had to be a lot of filler. And the backlash against them, that's been unbelievable. But I think it's like all franchises, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to take what you want and leave what you don't like. If you can't stand Andor, if you really hated it, don't watch season 2. Just don't bother. It's not going to get any different. They're not going to change it for you.
I know these studios, there's definitely a balancing act where they need to bring in new viewers and new fans, but they also need to retain fans. And the problem I see is that fans that already know everything about everything with all these different franchises, whether it's, Star Wars, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, whatever it might be, the content being created is supposed to be for everyone and to try to reach the masses. So I don't know. I think it's a fun debate. I don't get too upset about it. I just kind of take in the content. If it's worth reviewing for me, then, that's great. If it's not, then I just move on to the next thing.
Well, wise words here, Chris, anyway. So what I've been up doing, about 3 weeks ago, I went to Edinburgh Christmas Market, and me and my wife enjoy markets. So we were having a look at the best markets in Europe, and Edinburgh was coming up second or third in all of the top 10 lists. So we thought, well, it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours drive away, so we'll go to Edinburgh Christmas Market. Big mistake. The time of year, trains were on strike, roadworks were just insane, crazy. An hour's worth of driving, we may have moved a mile if we were lucky. Once we hit Edinburgh, car parks were full. It was ridiculous. But once we actually found somewhere to park and actually went to visit the market, it was really nice. There was a lot of food stalls and a lot of, tasting different European foods, and I prefer products to buy, but it was ram-packed, and I've obviously picked up some kind of virus when I was over there, because within a few hours I was feeling really ill. So I've been laid out with pneumonia for the last 3 weeks, which took quite a while to diagnose. Obviously all the assumptions were it was COVID, because I haven't had COVID, but all of the tests were coming back negative. Rushing off to the doctor, so the hospital 3 o'clock, picking up more tablets, straight back out to the place. Yeah, doctor, I'm resting. I'll be resting all night, Just crawling back into the house at 10 o'clock at night and repeating the next day.
It's tough when you're having to deal with an illness like that.
Hi, this is Andy Seacombe, otherwise known as Watto, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Okay then, so let's get into this episode. I've been looking forward to this one ever since we first mentioned it on the last show. So this book is all going to be about our favourite Star Wars collecting books and guides. And I don't know about you, Chris, but I found it really, really tough to whittle it down to just 3, because there are so many amazing guides, and we're going to upset many people by not mentioning some of the guides. So we will just give a nod, I think, to some of the other guides that are out there that we haven't touched on, that if we were going to do a top 10 or something like that, we may have gone down to. But we'll start off with you. We'll head over to one of your guides first. It is a guide that I own.
Like you, I have numerous guides from all different eras of Star Wars collecting, older collecting books, new collecting books. One that really stuck out to me was a book that I picked up shortly after I had gotten back into collecting in 2015. I had sold off all my vintage loose figures in the early 2010s, and I was getting back in, getting that Force Awakens hype and hunting for stuff. And I'm like, I want to put my loose figure collection together again. I was kind of going off some of the older guides and stuff, but in 2016, the Echo Base crew or Echo Base Facebook groups had put together a really cool soft cover magazine style guide called the Echo Base Vintage Trading Guide. I jumped on it because it appeals to me is that I'm going to all these shows. I'm going yard sailing or garage sailing. I'm going to flea markets. You could use your phone, but I wanted something in hand that I could use that was very straightforward, to the point. And this particular book, if anybody ever sees it, like magazine size, orange in color with the silhouette of Boba Fett on the front, but inside, the major contributors, which included Wayne Toddy, Neil Donnelly, Mark Donahue, as well as the other admins, they really structured this book just very straightforward. The list of figures, clear pictures of them with their associated weapons or accessories, and it said like the color of their weapons. I found it very user-friendly. That's what I was looking for. Kind of getting back into collecting, figuring out what accessory goes with what and that sort of thing. Super helpful, very clear photography, minimalistic approach. Yeah, it's pretty much just a very easy guide to use. It chronicles, all the figures from Star Wars all the way through Power of the Force, but it also includes the creatures, like Jabba the Hutt and Dewback, It doesn't go over all the variants, but it just talks about major variants like brown hair Luke and Final Cape Jawa, blue snaggletooth, and the like. So for me, this is just a quick and easy guide to pull out of the backpack and just reference. They also give you some popular terminology. And actually, there was getting back into collecting some of this terminology that was being used. I kind of missed the boat having stopped collecting in about 2006. A lot of terminologies like the coup or mint and sealed box or mock, mint on card, that sort of thing. It helped me out. I don't know if this is still available, but I contacted Wayne Toddy on Facebook to order this. And what's cool is the Echo Base crew has also made subsequent guides for vehicles and the Palatoy card backs. You said you had it. I mean, what are your feelings on this guide?
Well, I was a bit unsure when I first got it because it was so cheap, incredibly cheap. Maybe in about £3-4 from memory, and it was a not-for-profit book. All of the profits were going to one of the Echo charities, and they raise a lot of money for charity. So I picked the book up at one of the Echo vintage events, and I flicked through it, and I thought, oh wow! I was just stunned by the imagery at first because a lot of these guides are tiny little photographs, and they're more like for ticking off and checklists and things. But there was so much information there, so much good quality images. I thought it was a really, really good guide. And when I was talking to Wayne or Paul DeSykes, one of the two, one of them said the idea of it is you buy two and you keep one for taking long shores and you just use that one to cross off and tick, and you keep one as a coffee table book. Is a much nicer book, and that was a great idea. And you're right, they've released newer versions, so you've got the ship's guide now. There was a Palatoy guide as well that was done partially with Jason Smith. I'm sure that even if these guides are out of stock, they will be reprinting them due to demand. But yeah, I certainly would say that would be also in my top 5 must-have guides for anybody who's either wanting to get into the hobby to start collecting, or somebody who's coming back, as you say, who perhaps doesn't want to get overwhelmed with some of the more detailed books.
That's why I put this one on my list, is because it fits a couple different categories. It's just great that there's something that was so affordable and just easy to use. Props to the crew that put it together.
I'll jump over to one of mine now then. So mine, and honestly, I got this book and I loved it. Absolutely love it. And it got panned online, and I was like, oh my word, what am I missing here? So this is the Ultimate Guide to Vintage Star Wars Action Figures, 1977 to 1985, written by Mark Bellomo. Cover price was $27. I think that worked out at about £20 at the time. And I couldn't believe it. I was blown away by how good this book is. There's a lot of pages. It's about 300. Have you got a copy of this book?
I actually don't have a copy of this book, so I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
So it's 270 pages, and it starts off with a general introduction to Star Wars. But what got me straight away is as soon as you got to page 12, it starts off with the early bird certificate package, and you have 2 pages of information on the early bird certificates, together with prices. Now, yes, it got annihilated for the prices initially. I mean, to research this book must have taken a good year. The prices are way out of date. So, for example, mint and sealed packaging estimated was $2,650. You're way out with anything like that. But then you flip over and you've got R2-D2, 2 pages, Chewbacca, 2 pages, Luke, 2 pages. So you've got 2 pages on pretty much every single one of the figures. It features a lot of good quality information in there. So it has things like the production codes, what the first appearance of the figure was. It obviously can't go through all of the carded variations. So if I just picked Luke, for example, it would give you a price of what you'd expect to pay on a 12 back, what you'd expect to pay on a 20 back, what you might expect to pay on Empire. It's beautifully presented. I mean, every single page, I think there's over 600 images in this book. But if I just look at General Madine, for example, it has 3 photographs of General Madine. Top left one is sun damaged Madine, which I'm not too sure why that was needed. But then we've got the grey head, and then the fleshy beard. And then we've got another photograph of Madine with a close up. Opposite page of that is Klaatu, and it has 3 different variations of the weapon. Gamorrean Guard has 2 pages as well, with 3 different photographs of axes. But it doesn't just cover the figures. It also covers the mailaways, so you've got lots of baggies in there. You've got all of the Power Force coins, all neatly presented, all 62 of those coins. It has the vehicles, the play sets. It covers droids and Ewoks, the 12-inch scale figures. It covers some of the accessories, like the lightsabers and things like that, and the carry cases. But what I liked about, for example, if I just flick to this page here, which one's this? So this is the Star Destroyer playset. So the Star Destroyer playset, it covers 3 pages. And it has all of the parts photographed separately. And they are quite big, so the photograph of all the parts must be a good 8-inch by 8-inch. And it has each one of the parts. So when I was buying loose sets, I could go to this and go, oh, well, I don't have that small black part there. I need to find that. The branding eyeing on the dungeon playset, the one, the crane with the branding eye on it, that was a nightmare to find that, because basically I didn't even know that it existed. It's such a small part, but this book was perfectly detailed for us. It has all the mini rigs in there. Is it comprehensive? Well, yes, it is, based on it has everything that was released. But no, it isn't, because it doesn't have every major variation. I don't think it was ever intended to be that. It's not a Gus and Duncan's guide to everything that's comprehensible. But it's a very, very good book for somebody who wants to pick up a book and flick through it. Other criticisms that it had, for example, if you look at the Tusken Raider page, there's almost 3 pages of information on the Tusken Raider, but a lot of it is about the character and not about the toy. And I kind of get that criticism as well, because if you're buying an action figure book, you do want to learn about the toy. But isn't it going to get a bit samey? I mean, yes, you could say that there was a wax sculpt for the Tusken Raider, but that goes into the prototype section. You could talk about sonic welding, but ultimately you're going to get pretty boring, I think. And to be a mainstream book, it has to have more oomph in there. So when I got it, I was absolutely delighted. I intended to read it all the way through, which I've never done, because it's obviously not the way that this book is designed to be read. This book's designed to be read where you're thinking, oh, I'm interested in a Lobot. So I turn to Lobots page, and there's 4 different Lobots in there. So how much am I looking to pay for a Lobot? Recommends about $50. Okay, that's giving us a rough guide, and that's what it's about. I read the Lobot bits and then close the book again. But it's certainly, if you can pick a copy up, because I think it's out of stock, although there's a rumour of a second edition being coming out for quite a while now. But if you can pick a copy up, you will certainly not be disappointed with that. How many other books has 2 pages on each figure with high quality photos and covers every vehicle playset mini rig you can think of? It's brilliant.
It sounds like a really good book to have for somebody that's trying to piece together things, because that is a huge aspect of this book that I think might be underlooked, is being able to get the breakdown of playsets and vehicles, because we know that us as collectors, we come across collections or bins of things and we're like, oh, I think I recognize that. What does that go to? And we kind of squirrel away bits and pieces of things, and that type of thing is big for me, buying collections and trying to figure what things are. Usually I'm messaging other collectors and that I know, hey, what's this part? But to have a book like this and be able to thumb through and be like, oh, that's what that goes to. That's worth its, price right there. And as far as the pricing goes, I know Mark Palomo, like that's one of his things that he does typically in all his guides is he does include pricing, and it doesn't age well. So it's tough, but I know that that's one of the aspects that he likes putting into these guides, which is fine. The stories on all the particular characters. Again, if you're like me or you or some, and you have tons of other books, you want something that's a little bit different. So I can't fault him for having that style. That's pretty cool, but it's definitely one that's been on my short list of books to just pick up and add to the collecting library. So I'll hold out for the volume 2 or, try to see if I can pick one of these up on the secondhand market.
Hi, this is Vivian Lyra Blair, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
My second book is Meccano to Trilogo Collector's Handbook by Stefan Foucault and Jan Leroux. I can't say I'm a Meccano collector by any means. I just like having the information at hand and being able to learn about what the differences are between these, foreign card backs I think it's available digitally, but I have the soft cover book. When I'm out there hunting for Rebel Commando carded variations, which is a focus, I'll look at this book to, see what the variations are and that sort of thing. But for a collector that just wants to become more knowledgeable for foreign release card backs, I think this is a great book. It's relatively cheap, and it's currently available, I believe, on Amazon and stuff. But the thing I like the most about this is the extensive photography mint on card, all the way from the beginning of the Meccano line in 1978, all the way through the end of the Power of the Force on Tri-Logo cards. It's just a cool book that they put together, and it gives you a great visual, because a lot of the time, if you're searching for stuff online, it's really hit or miss whether or not you can get a detailed picture of the actual figure on card back that you're looking for. I mean, you've got everything from the original 12 backs. I'm not going to even attempt to say the French wording on the card backs. And then you've got the smaller square backs when they transition to that card back for the Meccanos, through the smaller card backs on the Empire Strikes Back, and then it jumps up to the Return of the Jedi line. But then there's also the transitional period, the Meccano Tri-Logos with the smaller bubbles, and then it goes to the traditional Tri-Logo card backs with the bigger bubbles. And this is just a handy book. Again, I can toss this in my backpack. Not that I think I'm going to be coming across too many Meccanos and Tri-Logos in the States, but I mean, I have at bigger shows like Celebration. And I mean, it helps me with the rarity guide, which I think is probably the coolest part of this whole book. Is they've come up with this format of Death Stars, the rarity out of 5 Death Stars. So 1 Death Star being a common versus 5 being the rarest. I just think that was pretty neat. And then they have a guide in the back which breaks down what figures are available on which particular card backs. And they've got a whole bunch of different card back designations. Stefan Foucault, he's got a passion for chronicling all the different figures on different card backs. He's got a Facebook group for that. Just a fun book. And I just like thumbing through it because I'm looking at all the stuff I wish I could have in my collection, and I never will.
With 1 being common, he does clarify that by saying common might mean you only see one every 2 years.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
Not exactly common. Because I remember flicking through and thinking, oh, off ID4, it's like 3 Death Stars. That might not be too bad. And he's like, oh yeah, I've seen 3 in my life. I was like, what? Right.
The Rebel Commando, I think, is a 2, and I've literally seen, like, in the last probably 7 years, I think I've seen like 3 come up for sale. So it is what it is, but it's still a good guide to check out.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
The first book that I went on was the perfect gift book, if you like. If you were, a family member wanting to buy a Star Wars book for somebody for Christmas, that would be the kind of book. This one flips completely to the other side, because this book, although it's 2, goes so much into detail on packaging and proof cards and chromalins. This book is a new proof by Matthias Rendell. And the second book, The Chrominal Strikes Back, also by Matthias. Haven't had an update of when the third book's coming out, the Return of the Jedi book. It's been quite a while. So, a new proof. I bought this book when it first came out, because, like most collectors, I've heard of chromalins and I've heard of proof cards, but I didn't really have it correct in my head. I wasn't using the correct terminology, and I felt at times where I was saying things that perhaps the information wasn't correct. So I bought the book. Absolutely love it. Definitely for somebody who wants to go deep into the art and the packaging. The books themselves have really high quality photos. I mean, I've just opened Princess Leia there. So we have her original photo art, which is probably, 5" by 5". And then the 12-back Cromulin takes up a full page in the book of an A4. And then you flick over, you've got blank proof cards, you've got the 12-back proof card, the 20-back Cromulin, the quality control 20-back, and all that's just for Leia. It's not just a collection of photographs because, as I said before, what's the difference between a 12-back proof card for Vader versus a 12-back proof card for Leia versus there's no difference. It's still a 12-back proof card. Mm-hmm. So there's more information in there and different shots, and he's got interviews in there with, people who worked on the artwork. This is possibly the book I've actually got my name in this one because I did the proofreading for the second copy. So thanks for Matthias on that. There's an amazing original photo art for R5D4. This is the only known Star Wars 2D item to exist for R5D4. So I've got no idea who's got it, and I've got no chance of owning it, but I can actually see it, and that's what I like about this book, that the appreciation, that it's there. And then the Cromulin Strikes Back is an even bigger, thicker, glossier book. So this one also has interviews in there, but as I'm just flicking through there, it goes through the 31 back, the 32 backs, the all the way through to Revenge of the Jedi proof cards, pages on colour separation sheets and transparencies and things that I never knew anything about before, such as Cromulin stickers, because obviously we cover store displays, but it's seeing all of these things, the uncut proof sheets. These are things that's in collectors' hands, where if you don't have the opportunity to go and visit these collectors, you just won't see them. What I particularly love is, for example, I've just opened the Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot. You've got some amazing different versions of the Revenge of the Jedi logo. So one of them features a red racetrack instead of the silver racetrack. There's one with a yellow racetrack. Some with Revenge of the Jedi written on them, almost a bit like Batman, the TV series with a kapow. That kind of font and imagery on it. I've never seen stuff like that before. It's absolutely brilliant. I like at the back the fact that it's got checklists in there. I mean, that's not to say that you've got any chance of owning these unless you've got incredibly deep pockets. You're never going to complete a set, but it's nice to see what is known and what's not known and why. So, you're looking at Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. So the photo art, for example, for Luke Skywalker on the Empire Strikes Back card hasn't been found. But Leia, Chewbacca, Vader and Stormtrooper has, so are those now lost in history or are those in black hole collections? We just don't know. But there's some absolute amazing imagery in there, probably the highest quality images that I've seen. But if you're somebody who wants a good book to look at, I mean, I'm assuming you're going to pick up the Jedi one to see what's out there for the Rebel Commando. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Because there will be stuff there you'll go, I didn't even know that existed. Who on earth got that? And definitely. This is definitely, although Matthias has put his name over it, it's definitely a community labour of love, this, because without Matthias's, great connections, people wouldn't have sent him high quality photos. People wouldn't have sent him, anything like this at all because of the fabricators and the fakers out there who may start tuning things out. The books are pretty tough to get now. I think a new proof may be sold out. He went through 3 printings of that. Yeah. Cromulin Strikes Back, the last I'd heard, he was down to the final few copies. If the Jedi book starts getting, hitting presses soon, it wouldn't surprise me if we see another print of the other 2 as well, and some kind of special 3-book package being put out. Great books. Matthias is a great guy. These are very, very reasonable priced, entirely funded by Matthias himself. He's went through private printing, and I would certainly pick these up if you wanted to go deeper into all of the packaging, card backs, proof cards, Cromulins, the whole lot. Thoroughly recommend them.
I can't agree more. I have both, and like you just said, it's a true deep dive into the history of Star Wars packaging. I find it fascinating because of the breadth of items that are included in this, from the concept to application and everything in between. I just think Matthias and everybody involved, with these books knocked it out of the park. The 2 books are so great to just thumb through and just start learning and getting visuals of what all these different terminologies you might hear on different podcasts or, on YouTube channels talking about vintage Star Wars collecting. I can't say it enough. And the fact that, so many collectors were just straight up willing to either let Matthias come and visit and photograph the pictures himself, or send him, high quality photos of items in their collection to be included in this. I just think that goes to show the type of community that we have. I would say probably about 99.9% of this stuff are things that, the regular collector is probably not going to get their hands on, but having these books is almost, the next best thing, because you know that they exist. They've been saved from the Kenner dumpster. It's a great passion project that, Matthias has put out there, and I can't wait for the Return of the Jedi one.
I'd hope that there's a chance that Matthias would be at Celebration London, and last time I know he shipped a lot of books over to Dave Tree from Farthest From fame, so hopefully Dave Tree may still have a batch of books, and it would be nice for him to bring some over if those flying can pick them up. But yeah, absolutely can't wait for the Return of the Jedi one.
Hi, this is Dorian Kinji, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
This book, then, I don't have this one, I'm gonna admit, but I'm certainly intrigued for a very, very good, comprehensive modern book, and that's where you've got to go next.
Yeah, I kind of shifting strategies here, and including a modern book. This book is Star Wars: The Vintage Collection Archive, 2010 to 2019, by Rich Halott, D. Martin Myatt, and Daryl DePriest. It was years in the making, a Kickstarter project, and there's a big part of the Star Wars collecting community focuses on the vintage collection, 3 3/4 inch, just due to the level of photography that you can do with all the figures and the vehicles and play sets. There's a whole faction of collectors that just love the vintage collection. I mean, it's a must-have, I think, for any 3 3/4 inch modern collector, but I mean any Star Wars collector, period. I think this would be a great addition to their collection, just because of the amount of information in this book is kind of mind-boggling. The book itself, it's about 350 pages, 360 pages, and it's a large hardcover book, coffee table book size. I'm not really a vintage collector myself. I did have quite a few and decided to move those on, but I want to keep this book just because it's very helpful for me if I buy collections and want to do research and, something on that level. But also the information that's provided, every figure has its own page. Everything's labeled all the way from the original trilogy collection, all the way through the saga collection, through the vintage collection. And it's all in order per figure. And you've got a breakdown. Every page has at least 3 to 4 images of the figure loose. And it shows front, back, accessories included, the card back, the card front with the figure mint on card. And then it also has the date of when this figure was released. And then every figure has a story, whether it's the people involved with the creation of the figure or just collectors' thoughts on them. You can't get much more extensive than this book does. So even better about this book is it includes all the vintage collection vehicles, the play sets, any exclusives like from San Diego Comic-Con, even like collector sets, proof cards that were handed out at Celebration. And then it's got fold out pages, of the big Millennium Falcon, Jabba's sail barge. It's just got everything. And if you had backed the Kickstarter, it came with all these bonus items, coins, posters, and proof pages, and special covers, and just the stories alone from the creators, I think is worth it, along with just the beautiful imagery. So, I mean, this is actually still available from Blue Milk directly on their website, and even from websites like Big Bad Toy Store. So it is one that you can pick up. It's not cheap. The retail price is $75, but goes in line with a lot of these other bigger books.
I think what's put me off books like this is that when you buy them and then another wave gets introduced, or more items are added. So I've always held off on them, but do you think now was the time to dip my toes in and say, you need to get it now rather than forever waiting?
I know. We've seen in the past some collector books continue to go up in price on the secondary market once they're sold out. With this still being available at retail, I mean, it might be the time, see if there's any used or whatever as well. That's an option. But I mean, I think it's worth it for a collector that dabbles in modern and vintage. I wonder if they're going to do a volume 2, if it's going to be in several years after, and not be added onto this, but in addition to this. And that, would keep the value of, or investment of something like this.
Hi, this is Samantha Aline, the first female stormtrooper in Star Wars, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Right then, so moving on to my last pick then. So I hummed and hawed for this third book for a long time. And what I've gone with is a book that I doubt you own. It's The Star Wars Phenomenon in Great Britain, the blockbuster impact in the galaxy of merchandise, 1977 to 1983. And it's written by fellow Star Wars collector Craig Stevens. I purchased it because I thought, it's a British book and I'm going to support it, because a lot of what we read online is, rightly Kenner aimed and, focuses on a lot on Kenner. But this book, it isn't about toys as such. It focuses on everything that was British. Now, there is no possible book that could ever cover every single piece of item that was ever released. There are, for example, pyjamas and quilt sets and things that people still seeing, or the House of Radley, or the Marks and Spencers. Nobody knows who brought them out, because a lot of these items were just rushed, short-lived and gone. But what Craig's done is he's divided this book into many chapters covering specific areas. So, for example, there's a chapter on Addis, the soap products. And he's got interviews and magazine clippings and adverts and posters and snippets from comics, Then he's focused heavily on, the Darth Vader tours, when they were dressing up as Palatoy and, which department stores did they visit, what were the dates, where did they go to, moved through to Empire Strikes Back, and, talks about how the retailers weren't keen on stocking Empire Strikes Back branded items. They wanted the Star Wars brand, that discussions on how finding things with Empire logos on them was pretty tricky. But by the time it come to Jedi, the retailers are quite happy having Jedi on them because obviously Star Wars was here to stay. So it's about 300 pages. It's very text heavy. There are images, but you'll not see many of these images in other places. So, for example, the coin purses from Smile. Yep. That was the first time I saw those carded was inside these.
Oh wow!
But things like Star Wars balloons available by a company called Ariel. I'd never even heard of them. But there's a photo in there. These are things where some of these make DTs and Rocket Fire and Fett seem common, they're just, they are one of one, or everybody goes, I saw them at the display counter when I was buying me, your candy or you're buying your comics, but, you just can't get them now. Store displays, interviews with people that you just, you wouldn't dream of interviewing. Nobody's going to go and interview the guy from Star Wars soaps and asking him how he got the license and who was he dealing with. And Charles Lippincott gets mentioned quite a lot in there, and his impact on the whole Star Wars, in Britain market, focusing on the problems that they had adapting things to the British market from the American market, and talking about how obviously we were months behind America and the buzz and everybody, what on earth's coming? Something's coming. We've got to get these products out. So it's a brilliant book. Now, yes, it's heavily British themed, but if you've got interest in beyond the toys, oddball kind of collectibles, like wall sausage wrappers,
Gimcrack.
Yes, the Gimcrack things, it's the kind of book for you, but it's very text heavy. It can be difficult to read at times due to the volume of text, but if you're collecting or if you're even interested in what's out there or what you should be looking for on eBay, or you've got 11 pencils and you don't know what the 12th pencil is, because even the Star Wars Collectors Archive doesn't focus that well on British collectibles. There is a website that's been created by Andy Preston that has lots of photos in there, but this is just another reference. There is never going to be a definitive Star Wars British book, but this is as close as I think we're going to get to it. So it's a wonderful book, and certainly something that somebody aged 40 to 50, 55 who grew up in the time in Britain is going to love this book. So I would highly recommend that.
Hi, this is Steve Grad from Beckett Authentication, and I will tell you what, I approve and I authenticate Fantha Tracks, and you should too.
Chris, well, we're coming to the end now. Have you got any books that you just want to shout out to quickly?
I mean, one of the ones that's come out in the last 3 years is Engineering an Empire by our good friends Matt George, Gary Borbidge, and Stephen Ward. I mean, that book is just, again, another passion project, jam-packed with goodness, all about the employees, that were part of Kenner and the production of these figures, stories of all their lives. We know that a volume 2 is potentially in the works for that one, so keep an eye out.
Well, yeah, I had that one as well. The Engineering the Empire book. It's brilliant. It is really, really good. I didn't realise the second volume was coming out, so that'll be good to catch up.
I mean, there's rumours. I don't know.
Yeah. But I have to say, the Gus and Duncan's books are brilliant, but they are hefty, and I've heard a lot of people online saying, I'll take the book, it's $75, how much is shipping? Another $75. Well, you're shipping a tree. These books are incredibly comprehensive. Massive. So the 3 that I absolutely like are the Comprehensive Guide to Star Wars Collectibles, because quite often when you're doing some research in the SWCA, you can't find the item that you want, but they're in the book and they're presented well, so that's really good. The Cast and Crew items, and I like the Prototypes book. I'm also going to stick the Kellerman Guide in there. Now, I have to say, I've never purchased the Kellerman Guide. I do have the PDF copy, so I flicked through that. I'm going to say, in this day and age, I'd be disappointed to spend $275 on that book. Don't get us wrong, Kellerman set the standard. Kellerman was the marker, but there are books that have gone beyond Kellerman now, with lots more new discoveries and things. So I wouldn't pay that. I'd probably pay $50 for Kellerman. I think I'd be happy paying that. But I'm happy with my PDF. It's still a good, fun book, but it's not the Bible that it was. But there's plenty of other books out there. I mean, the Canadian book, the Tormod Price Guide's another one as well. Oh yeah, I would give a shout out to. And that was another one I was flicking through. You can get Tormod's Price Guide, which, yes, I think it was 1996-ish, 97. Prices miles out, but that's not the purpose of it. You can pick up a hardback one of those in brand new condition for about $15, $20 if they're still going around about that price. I got mine a year or two ago, but you don't buy them for the prices. You buy them for the items, the pictures, the stuff in there is absolutely brilliant. Definitely give a shout out to Tormod. But I think what we've got to say is we're absolutely blessed to be living in a world where we've got so many great collecting friends who are willing to share their knowledge in this format.
And that's the biggest thing. You can see that this hobby, this community is so passionate about collecting, the variety of different books that are out there and resources, lots of time and effort put in by all involved with these projects. I just think it's awesome to have this type of information at our hands. Us collectors are always hunting for that next thing. What else is out there? And these books help give you, those ideas. That's great for us. And, it's just another reason for us to spend more money.
Well, Chris, I honestly thought this was going to be about a 20-25-minute show. We're filled, best part of a million hours talking about 6 books. I mean, but it just goes to show that, these are incredibly, detailed, and they've touched a lot of our lives. And we've all made friends with the people who've written these books, talking to them and supporting them and seeing them at celebrations. Great bunch of guys. I'm looking forward to whatever comes out next.
Absolutely.
Right, Chris, it's been a great show, so thanks very much for your time. Thanks for listening to Collecting Tracks, everybody. Thanks very much to all listeners, everybody who supported our show. Thanks for all the shares, the comments, the likes and the listens. So without much further, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we'll see you guys in our next episode. So thanks for listening to Collecting Tracks. If you want to be part of the action, stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Fantha Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fantha Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fantha Tracks intro, Andy Lythe for our Collecting Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember to tune in to Good Morning Tatooine, live Sunday evenings at 9 PM UK time, 4 PM Eastern and 1 PM Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. Check out Fantha Tracks Radio Friday evenings at 7 PM UK time for new episodes of the Fantha from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks and Cannon Fodder, and every Tuesday at 7 PM UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.